What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online Podcast, coming to you from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Zach Abolverdi and Nick Torre here, and we have made it to the end of the SEC slate. I'm wearing this Mac Miller shirt, but I probably should be having a different type of music artist, given the trip I'm about to take, Nick.
Maybe Jason Aldean.
You give me some names.
Brad Paisley, Colby Cooper.
Many guys that probably have played in Nashville on their way to the top.
That's the country music capital of the world.
And we are going there. We are staying an extra night, as a matter of fact.
I love Nashville.
Listen, if Vanderbilt had a full-time job that could pay Nick as well as he gets paid to cover the Gators, he'd be out of here, folks.
Be there. Nashville's a great spot.
So we're looking forward to this trip. It's our last true road trip. Tallahassee's just an easy drive. We'll see where the Gators are going bowling, but they are eligible now for postseason play after getting a 38-6 win over South Carolina on Saturday. We'll start this show by recapping that game a little bit. We'll get into all the news of this week. We will then preview the Florida-Vanderbilt matchup. We will not have a Vandy writer on today. I don't know.
I think there's one, but he works for a different network, and I reached out to him, and I don't think his network wanted him to be on our network.
Well, that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah. But real quick, I wrote about it in my 5 thoughts because we kept asking Billy Napier about the importance of a bowl game. And he almost was like angry at us for asking. That's not the expectation at Florida. But it is critical for Florida and where they are now, laying the foundation for this program to have those 15 practices. As we'll get into with guys leaving, who knows what the roster will even look like by the time you get to a bowl game. But you're going to have a lot of young players who maybe have only played in 2, 3 games, 4 games. They'll get an opportunity to get first, second team reps. So
some for the first time this year.
So Billy couldn't come out and say, yes, it's critical. It's important for us to get to a bowl game because that immediately gets spun by media, fans. Oh, that's the new standard at Florida. Just getting to a bowl game. So he couldn't say it. So we're saying it for him.
Big deal.
This is a big deal for Florida to get those extra 15 practices. No, that's not the standard. That's not the goal. But pretty quickly into October, even before November, your goals from the preseason were gone. You weren't going to get to Atlanta. So you have to start recalibrating. And Florida,
they've recalibrated.
He said after Georgia, we're going to win the next 5.
Which is crazy because most coaches wouldn't send that type of message to their team. If you get the typical 1 week at a time, 1-0 each week. Napier was screw that. We're running the table. Yeah. November's ours.
The first time I heard it, I was like, "There's only 4 games. Oh, the bowl game." Took me a second.
Yeah, and then he said it right after they beat Texas A&M in the locker room post game. We're 1-0. It was almost like they turned the page. It's a new chapter on this season. And last Saturday was the best one yet. Best, most complete performance that we've seen from the Gators. Not fully, though, in all 3 phases. Crawshaw did his job, as Nick expected fully.
Yeah. Booming onion of a punt.
What is this here? Number 1 in the SEC, number 4 nationally in net punt average.
Yeah, they've punted like 12 times. This is upsetting. I don't
season high 67-yard punt from Crawshaw. Nick almost jumped out of the press box.
That's a bomb. That's a bomb. It made up for the low snap that was bobbled on the field goal, right?
Yeah, and then a miss or block, excuse me.
Yeah, the special teams game changers changed the game not in the way they intended.
And that was the only points that the Gators gave up Saturday as the defense pitches a full game shutout. First time since playing the Doors last year. And
20 straight possessions for the defense without allowing a point.
6 quarters in a row, and they've just season low 237 yards that they allowed. Season best 3 of 11 on 3rd down. They forced 3 turnovers on 3 straight possessions to open the second half. They got 3 sacks. I want to know what
Ventrell Miller said in that locker room in College Station. Put the fear of God in this defense because they've been a totally different unit since that halftime when Ventrell said it was tough love. Justice Boone said there was some cussing. There were some harsh words. No disrespect, but pointing some guys into the mirror and asking them if they were proud of what they were putting out.
Well, they're proud now.
Yeah.
And then obviously offensively, this rushing attack is just humming. 374 yards on Saturday, season high, the most they've had in an SEC game, I think, in over a decade. It's really impressive what that duo of Johnson and ETN, that offensive line, what they've kind of opened up. And then, Richardson, that was probably the most physical that we've seen him run this season. And, too short of his season high in terms of carries. So another game without a turnover as well. So he's kind of, answered that. And they are kind of right where they want to be now heading into this final stretch, last two road games, final SEC contest. And they're getting a Vanderbilt team we'll talk about in the second segment, but that's coming off their first win in 26 games?
It's like 1,000 days.
Crazy losing streak that they snapped against Kentucky. So, that they've got some momentum going as well. But for Florida, Billy said, on the teleconference Wednesday, like, hey, man, it's kind of fun to come to work right now. Like, most of this season has been a struggle. It's been
up and down.
Yeah, up and down, dealing with issues, dealing with, things that you discover along the way and stuff that you've got to confront and address and fix, and trying to get the defense right, trying to develop AR. And now they've kind of gotten to a point, not only in terms of production on the field, but morale in the locker room and the togetherness. And was it propinquity that he talked about in the spring?
I don't know what that is.
Propinquity?
No idea what that is.
I'm going to have to look it up. But it was the idea of being togetherness, which is what they lacked. And now you've got a new culture at Florida that I think is showing up on the field and in the results. And Nick talks about kind of some of those locker room moments that they've had. But they're in a good place right now as a football team, and they have a chance to accomplish that goal that Napier kind of set for them here in this final month.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's 11 a.m. at Vandy. I think back in 2016, you had that 13-6 game.
Yeah, ugly.
It's 11 a.m. local. It's going to be cold. There's going to be 800 people in the stands. You got to bring your own juice. You got to start fast. And that's why I asked him on Monday, did you learn anything from that 11 a.m. in College Station? He said, yeah, we've quality controlled that. And I don't know if he's going to be successful trying to control the sleeping habits of 18 to 20-year-olds. They probably go to sleep a little later than he'd want them to. But it's critical because you go into a game against Vanderbilt, and we've seen it time after time at these early kickoffs in Nashville. You kind of just start slow, and then Vanderbilt gets some confidence, and then they hang around, and then they get some confidence, and then out of nowhere you need like an Austin Harden last-second field goal to win.
And, I mean, it could get weird because you never know what you're going to get with this team in this town. With weather, that was a team rule this week that they could not talk about it. So we'll get into that matchup in the next segment. I do want to address, obviously, all the news that's happened this week on the roster front. I wrote a story a couple weeks ago and promoted it on Twitter with the phrase, "Winter is coming." And, Gators were bracing for some attrition and roster movement, and we've seen it now. It's starting to show up really since the end of October and all this month in November. The Gators have now up to 8 guys, 6 of them announcing that they're transferring. 2 have been cut from the team. DeJuan Black, the latest because of academics, but outside of him and Cox, all the rest of them have been guys saying, hey, I'm transferring. And that's not, out of the norm during a first year with the new staff, that after that season, guys, feel like it's not the right fit or they're not happy with their playing time. They want to find a new spot. What's been different about not what we're just seeing at Florida, but across the country is you're having players now doing this mid-season and leaving the team before the year is over and there's still games on the schedule, even if they're not, even if they're not grad students and can immediately enter the portal, because if you haven't graduated already and you want to transfer, you have to wait until December 5th, which is that portal window that I was referring to. And so you have guys that are leaving the team, but they can't officially enter the portal, so they're just not doing football and kind of focusing on school. And it's a weird dynamic because we were talking about it before the show, Nick. You see Josh Braun taking a visit to FSU, and he's technically still on scholarship at Florida, even though he's not on the team. And it's a crazy dynamic that is just part of what's new about this college football landscape.
Yeah, I think Billy was not trying to throw anyone under the bus when you talked about it on Wednesday, but you can tell that he's struggling with it because
he called it a shame.
There's a bunch of guys that have told him, "Hey, coach, I'm going to enter the transfer portal after the season," but they're showing up at practice. They're still helping this team. You made a commitment at the beginning of the year, and they're going to see it through. I'm not going to shame anybody for wanting to do what's best for them, but I just don't understand leaving with 2 games left, maybe a bowl game, an opportunity, and maybe you wouldn't play in the bowl game.
Yeah,
the bowl game will be after December 5th.
The window, yeah.
But to me, and you can't enter the portal. So announcing that you're going to enter the portal,
I guess trying to start the process
puts you on someone's radar. But they aren't supposed to be contacting you, which is then when I wonder how Josh Braun's on like an unofficial visit at Florida State because he's not in the portal because he hasn't graduated yet. So he'll be in December 5th. That's when teams can start contacting him. It is a weird dynamic, and I'm all for the players being allowed to transfer. I think coaches can dip whenever they want to, and the players should be allowed to as well. I just think it's a weird thing to see guys just like 4 games left, 3 games left, 2 games left, just deuces. And it's like you can't even enter the portal yet.
Yeah, and it's almost like some guys have gotten to the point that they, as Napier said, see the writing on the wall, maybe not happy with their role on the team, and that maybe they just
but then
they don't want to keep coming to practice.
But then you have Marco Ortiz, who was hurt and is in the portal because he already graduated, and he's on the field, not dressed out, not in pads, but he's still there. He's still around the team. And
Griffin McDowell is one of those individuals as well. He's a grad student, or he's earned his degree, so he can already be in the portal. He announced that this week, but he's still on the roster, still with the team.
Trent
Whittemore is not. He's no longer listed on the roster, starting on his looking for his next school. So it's just as Kingsley Eguakon said when I asked him, do you feel like when guys already know they're leaving, already are looking around, is it better for them to just get it over with and leave mid-season, or hang around when they know they're not really committed? And
if you're not fully committed, are you then
not bringing the right energy to practice and in the locker room?
You're a cancer. I think that's taking it too far. But you're not committed.
Full go.
You're not full go. You're just holding people
going
back.
through the motions.
Yeah.
And he was like, it depends. He's like, if you're a guy that's, not playing, not seeing the field, not getting reps in practice, and you do that, I kind of understand it. Why not get that process started now? Start taking visits. But he was like, if you're playing and like we need you and you play a part on the team and you do that, he was like, that's out of pocket because you shouldn't do that. And now to Napier's team's credit, he was like, hey man, the guys that we have had that have announced that they're leaving or that they're going to leave, I'm not worried about it, and I don't feel like it's an issue with my team. He was like, he doesn't feel like he's got guys that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out as the season, kind of comes to a close, and they're already looking ahead to where they're going next. And he would say, hey, if we felt like someone wasn't giving his all in practice, we'd address it and kind of call him out on it. But when I asked him Wednesday, he said that they haven't experienced that. And they're not worried about it. And maybe some of the guys that might feel that way or might kind of bring that type of energy to the table, they're not playing and they're not really in the rotation. I don't know how much it would make a impact anyway. So it's just
that's a tough pill to hear, though. If you're one of those players, Billy Napier, your head coach, like you announce you're going to the portal, and he's like, "Yeah, we haven't lost anyone that we really care about." It's like, whew, okay, made the right decision.
Look, I mean, I will say, and I kind of put out an insider note on our message board, so I don't want to give too much away, but I definitely can say that Napier, and I'm sure his staff too, they don't take these situations lightly, and they've worked with several players on not just guys that want to hit the portal, but obviously from a discipline standpoint, or if there's guys that maybe want to quit, they've done a lot of things to like smooth situations over and talk guys out of things and work
chances.
Yeah, work with them through things. So it's not like I've seen a lot of fans kind of react to some of the news this week, and they're like, Billy's cleaning house and he's trimming the fat and this and that. Like, that's not his attitude whatsoever. No. This is part of what happens in a transition year. I don't think it's easy on anybody. And really, as a fan, you just want to support those guys and wish them the best. The ones that are moving on.
We expected to have this kind of attrition after the spring.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. So I'm starting to see like this stuff happening, not just at Florida, it's happening all over the place. What our roster is going to look like by the time, like, let's say Florida plays in a bowl game on December 28th. Who's going to be around?
As Egocon said Wednesday, goes, yeah, bowl games are kind of depleted now.
Yeah. I mean, with the
on both sides,
with the two different transfer windows now, everyone's trying to get in on December 5th to go find their place and not have to wait for the second window.
They want to start their next school for that spring semester in January. It's the first week of January.
So, yeah, bowl games might look a little weird.
It will. The Gators, like I said, they're at 8 guys now during the season, 6 of them announcing that they're transferring that are, not going to be with the team come that bowl window.
Just the tip of the iceberg, I think.
There's more. And I mean, that's what Billy said. Hey, I've got other players that have told me I'm leaving, but I'm not doing it until the season's over, so the regular season's over. And you got to commend the guys that, that are deciding to do that. And it's
sticking it out.
Sure. And I don't really know how many of the guys that, that have decided to leave and aren't with the team anymore, that like the locker room's like, oh man, I can't believe he left us. Like, we were counting on him. You know what I mean? I think most of the ones that have made that decision, they weren't really in the rotation like that, which is why they decided to not be on the team anymore.
Yeah.
So it is a new dynamic. I think that this staff is doing the best that they can to deal with it. But it's not just them. This is happening across the country. It is the new world that we live in. And it's only going to get more crazy and hectic and interesting here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy month of December.
We have a transfer portal tracker story on Gators Online that
constantly updated.
There's going to be a lot of different timestamps that get added to that. Well, we're going to jump to this break. We're going to come back on the other side and switch gears to this Florida-Vanderbilt matchup, what we want to see from the Gators in Nashville, and trying to carry that momentum here down the home stretch. We'll be right back after this break.
Coming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Welcome back into the Gators Online Podcast. Zach and Nick here. And before we get to this Vanderbilt game, Nick, there's something that we did not talk about from the South Carolina game that must get mentioned. And that is Desmond Watson's first career takeaway. I mean, that was one of the highlights of the season, easily.
Yeah, he instantly became a meme, became a video.
That was a great video.
Talking to him on Wednesday, he had a running back mentality. Said, got the ball, was thinking 6.
Former running back himself.
It seemed in the moment that he ran a lot farther than he did. And then when I watched the game back, I'm like, oh, he took 12 steps. He made it 8 yards.
But that capsulated in time.
Got a little stiff arm in Spencer Rattler's face.
They put him on a Heisman. They put him in an art gallery.
He also, he disappointed me. So Billy said if the defense is top 10 in the nation in scoring or total defense, then they'll consider putting defensive guys in
for goal line
for
package.
some goal line packages. Asked Dez, would you want that? He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, please, we need this. Dez.
I asked, first of all, I asked Billy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked Dez. So I'm trying to start the campaign, Florida fans.
I want to see him carry the ball, but I will accept a fullback also a lead blocker.
Yes. Just take somebody out.
I don't think Florida's had a fullback since Hunter Joyer.
Nope.
21 would be a good fullback.
He would be a wrecking. He'd be a wrecking ball.
You would need some patience as the running back because it's going to take him a little while to get going.
I think but he's got it in him though. It's like it's like riding a bike.
Just hide behind him. Trevor Etienne, just hide behind Dez. Follow him forward.
I mean, we discovered when we met with him Wednesday that he played running back early on in his career. That's why he looked like such a natural when he got that ball in his hand and switched it.
I mean, he saw a defender coming, switched the ball. Think he was just a little sweaty, started to lose it, decided to go down instead of trying to fight through it.
Shout out to Spencer Radler for not just getting demolished.
He gets the tackle.
I mean, he did.
He got a palm, but he got the tackle.
Yeah, that was fun. And what was cool about that, probably the most, was the celebration on the sideline. You know, I mean, that was the most I think that we've seen the team react to someone's play for obvious reasons. You know, Richardson was like, if he scored on that play, we would have ran to the locker room.
And that's something that the players said too. Like, I didn't think that Billy would be a guy that would encourage that kind of celebration.
He said he does.
And
he's like, I want the officials to warn me.
I would have said no way. Like, this is a guy like Florida doesn't even really allow guys to wear like different color shoes or different gloves,
crazy
or armbands and all this stuff. So then to hear the players like, oh yeah, coach wants us to celebrate, to have fun, to do that. He wants to get warned. I'm like, okay, well, that's different. Didn't expect that.
Yeah, and that's, you know,
I don't think he would have been happy if the team ran into the locker room after Des would have scored, though.
No,
I think there's boundaries to the celebration.
There is,
which are the field. Don't leave the field.
They got that sideline warning though.
Mm-hmm. Well, half the team, but not even half. 3/4.
The whole defense came on the field.
Was on top of Desmond Watson in a pile.
It's just cool, man. It's just those moments and those kind of stories for a guy like that. I mean, that's why we cover this sport.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really cool. And he said he's seen it, and he probably can't open his phone and open Twitter without seeing it, the highlight or a tweet or a meme or him on the Heisman. So you could tell he was definitely enjoying, the little bit of fame from his 3-second run.
I want a fullback dive though. I need it.
Love it.
I gotta see it before. He's wearing number 21. I mean, come on.
Fred Taylor.
The second coming.
That's him.
So, and obviously that's part of what the Gators have done really well on defense is takeaways. I mean, that has been the one thing consistently that they've done well with that unit. Right now they're second in the SEC, tied for first in the SEC in takeaways, top 15 nationally, and they've had one in every game. They've had multiple turnovers in recent games, and obviously that's something that they want to continue going up on the road. Obviously, you're getting this 11 a.m. kick against the Commodores. You're trying to get going and find some juice, and what better way to do that than to get a turnover? So I think that's certainly going to be key for this unit. And again, they're going up against another dual threat quarterback yet again, Nick, and they've faced a lot this season.
Yeah, they certainly have. I think Wright had a great game last week against Kentucky. He's a junior. He's not necessarily the future. AJ Swan missed the Kentucky game with an injury. A freshman, he's their future. And I think if he's healthy enough to play, that's who they'll go with. You have to be realistic with yourself with Vanderbilt. I guess they could beat Florida and Tennessee and go to a bowl game. But if you're being realistic with yourself, you're not really playing for this year. You're playing for development.
Yep.
And that would be to get your freshman who you think is going to be the future of your program, a chance to play a team like Florida now.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this matchup. Obviously, Florida's got the advantage in several categories. And right now, offensively, they're playing about as well as you can play in the run game. They've really got, I think, that rotation in a good place, and just in terms of how they're feeding Etienne and Johnson. And I don't know, knock on wood, what's going to really stop that. Florida State, I think, will be a much tougher test, but Florida, they should be able to run the ball, I think, at will against Vandy, and that's what I would expect. The one thing that the Commodores do well defensively, just in terms of statistically, is they do get after the quarterback, and they're able to get some sacks. I think they rank third in the SEC in sacks, and so that's something that Florida's going to have to be wary of. But I think for Anthony Richardson, going back on the road, we you call him road game Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a different version of AR, and last time we saw it in College Station, it was pretty special.
But he spoke for all Floridians this week.
Yeah.
So if I have to put socks on, it's cold, which means if I can't wear sandals, it's cold. It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how Florida handles it, because 25 ain't no joke.
Yeah,
that's cold. And I mean, the highs are for 45, and by noon it won't be 20 degrees, but it's going to be a cold game.
Yeah, and gosh, I can't think of the last time. I mean, how cold was it in Missouri last year?
It was beautiful in Missouri last year. It was the first time.
Not for Dan.
I've been to every Florida Missouri game that Florida's been since they started making that trip, and that was the first time I saw the sun in the state of Missouri. So it was a beautiful day last year.
So not what we're going to get in Nashville.
I hope there's sun, but it's just cold.
So that'll be a test for some guys, that, especially the Florida guys that like Anthony, that aren't used to that. But Napier made it very clear at the beginning of the week on Sunday that is not going to be a distraction or an excuse that we use or talk about.
I think he was like, guys, it's going to be cold, and that's the last time we're talking about it. That quick.
Bundle up, wear what you need, bring what you got to have.
That's when you see like I can't remember what game it was, but I remember like Justin Shorter and Copeland went out and they were like warming up without shirts on. I'm like, it's 35 degrees. What are you trying to prove here?
Yeah, this is
too cool to be cold.
So obviously this is a game where Florida is favored. They should take care of business, but it's still an SEC matchup. They still got to go out there and kind of build on what they've kind of had going the last 2 weeks. Nick, what do you kind of want to see from this team? There's only 2 games left in the regular season. As they get ready for what's going to be a really tough matchup to end the year at Florida State, what do they kind of need to show just to keep progressing to that point?
Well, I think you don't want to see the defense take a step back. It looks like, and I think a lot of people, myself included, think that they've started to make a turn and they're finding an identity in the running game. I think you're seeing the defense play differently, and Billy had said it too. It's not that the scheme is bad, but guys have to execute, and I think
and get comfortable in it.
I think the guys are more comfortable now. You're seeing the cornerbacks play a little more press. I think you're seeing some different kind of blitzes than we saw earlier. So I think it's just guys getting comfortable with it. It's interesting because I've been thinking about this a while when they talk about leaders and we're becoming closer. And it's like, well, shoot, bro, you have 2 games left. Maybe you should have done that in the fall and the spring, but it makes sense. Like it takes time, especially when you're in the first year of a program and you're still learning and adapting. And maybe this is even year 0 for Billy Napier. I mean, you had to tear things down, and we've talked about and written about you're laying the foundation for the future of this year. So I don't want to see a step back from the defense. You're starting to play well. You're starting to find an identity. The offense, this is what I thought they should have been doing all year. 60% run the ball, 65% run. You have a really good offensive line, the best I think that I've seen in 10 years covering Florida.
Give Osiris a brick.
He's getting a brick. This kid from Louisiana who just started playing football because he was 400 pounds and wanted to lose some weight, wanted to quit. Didn't think he was good enough to play college. His coach leaves. He doesn't think he's good enough to play in the SEC, that Billy's not going to call him.
He probably still doesn't realize he's about to be a first-round
I
pick.
don't think he realizes that. And
holiday spirit, and is continuing what he's kind of had going now as a tradition here in the local community, kind of feeding families in need. This holiday season, he's doing it for 125 families in the area. Has already fed 80 families so far. So shout out to Shannon, because that's just incredible, kind of the good deeds that he does in this community. And he's very involved with that offensive line group and with the football team, friend of the show as well. So, and I think on that note, again, to Nick's point, the defense keeping it going, I think being able to handle Mike Wright and, deal with a really good offensive line that Vanderbilt has. For the Gators, we know what to expect, I think, from the run game. Anthony Richardson, can he kind of continue the progression that he's shown in terms of taking care of the ball, running the offense? I think the one challenge or just something to watch for in this game, once again, another week where the Gators are down somewhat at receiver. Xavier Henderson is going to be out for this game. That's the bad news. The good news is you get Justin Shorter back.
Jaquavion Frazier as well.
Yeah, Jaquavion Frazier is out, so some opportunities for young guys like Caleb Douglas, Marcus Burke. We saw Khalil Jackson kind of get his first action in the rotation in the last matchup. So, not anything, I think, with Shorter coming back that's going to necessarily hurt them or hold them back, but nonetheless, more opportunities for these kind of young guys to show what they can do. And, Douglas, man, he's one of those freshmen that have really, throughout the course of the season, been kind of one of the standouts as a first-year player.
Yeah, and Billy keeps bringing up that he was a quarterback. I don't think he started playing receiver until he was a senior in high school.
Junior, yeah.
So just when you think of that, he's still so green in terms of knowing coverages, being able to look at a defensive back and see how they're trying to play him, learn his route tree and how to run everything. But definitely a talented player that has a bright future.
And then I think lastly, as I mentioned, Saturday was Florida's best game of the season. Probably the most complete performance from the defense for sure. Another strong performance from the offense. Maybe would have wanted a little bit more red zone production, which Billy's talked about. But I think now, it's like each week you take a new step. It was last week. It was like, okay, they shut
second half
shutout. Can they do it for a full game? I think now we're looking at this team is, can they play a complete game in all three phases? And that special teams unit, the game changers, that's the one, I think, area that's, obviously still room for improvement. Does it happen in Nashville where they get that complete game? I think if they do, they could really win big against the Doors. But that's obviously something that I'm sure they addressed a lot in practice this week.
My guy Adam Mahalik.
Just line him up from 50 every time.
I mean, he gets put on the walk-on of the year list, and then gets the yips. Starts missing some, gets some blocked. But yeah, he might be your long distance field goal kicker.
And I don't think
he's going to be your only guy this week because Trey Smack is out again.
Yeah.
With a lower body injury, which I was told is a groin. He's had so many little injuries. In the fall camp, he had an injury. I don't know what kickers are doing in practice, but he's gotten nicked up a couple times.
Your boy Jeremy's all right.
I mean, he's Australian. He'll be fine.
And look, I don't think in this matchup, especially special teams should make all that much of a difference. But if you go out there and miss 2 field goal opportunities and you give up another touchdown on special teams, that could allow Vanderbilt to make this a game. Yeah. So it didn't hurt them against the Gamecocks, but it could hurt them Saturday. So that's something they got to shore up. But I think, you guys get our drift from hearing us talking about this matchup. We are expecting, I think, wins on Saturday for the orange and blue.
I mean, Vanderbilt is one of the worst teams in terms of turnover margin. So just don't cough the ball up, run it all day, and just keep playing the defense that you have been. If it's right at quarterback, contain. If it's Swan, I think you'll be fine. It's a young quarterback who's will probably go through some growing pains.
And look, I am ready for this trip. It's going to be a fun time. And you know what that means with that 11 a.m. local kick, Nick? More time for the night.
Good game Saturday? Night games? I hadn't even looked.
I won't be looking. I'll be on Broadway.
On Broadway.
All right, we're going to jump to this final break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk some Florida hoops as the Gators got a big matchup on Friday against Florida State on the road in Tally, and also mention some of the news that came out on Thursday regarding the future of the SEC when it comes to the football divisions. We'll be right back after this break.
Football is back. There isn't a better way to enjoy watching your favorite team than by playing daily fantasy sports with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the simplest form of real money daily fantasy sports and pits you against the numbers. Whether you're a fantasy sports nut or a casual fan looking to add some excitement to the games, Prize Picks is the perfect game for you. It's the best way to have action on the game in states like Alabama, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Kentucky, and over 70% of the United States. Prize Picks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. You simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Download the Prize Picks app or visit prizepicks.com and sign in using the code GATORS to get an instant 100% bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100 back. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. That's free money. Don't forget that Prize Picks app or prizepicks.com and the code GATORS to claim your bonus today and take your viewing of your team to the next level this season.
Welcome back into the Gators Online Podcast. Zach and Nick here from Spurs Gridiron Grill. And as we get ready for Florida's final SEC game of the season, that kind of brings into focus some news that hit the Twitter sphere on Thursday. And that is regarding the future of league scheduling and how it's set up division-wise. And this comes from Mark Ryan, who broke the news from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, saying that the league is looking at going to a single division and is leaning heavily in that direction, moving away from 2 divisions and no 4-team pod system. So all the scenarios and possibilities that I think people have been putting out there, it looks like that won't happen from a pod standpoint because not only are they doing away with that, but 2 divisions, they just want to make it one whole thing as it used to be back in the day.
Yeah,
so,
I think this signals that you're going to have to go to 9 conference games. When you go to 16 teams, I think you have to move to 9. At the SEC meetings in Destin before SEC Media Day in July, they said that there were 30 models that they looked at, and they came down to 2. One is a 1-7 model where you'd have 1 permanent opponent, and then you rotate 7 others. And then the other would be a 3-6 model where you have 3 yearly opponents. And not every team in the SEC, Missouri's new to the SEC, Texas A&M's new to the SEC. They don't really have traditional rivals like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Auburn, Georgia. There's no way you could do a 1-7 model. The rioting that would happen in both Tennessee and Alabama if Alabama and Tennessee weren't playing on the 3rd Saturday in October every year. And if they're playing, well, then you have to play the Iron Bowl. So to me, there's no realistic way to do the 1-7 model. With this news coming out today, you would have to go to a 9-game schedule and do a 3-6.
Are you disappointed about them not going with a a pod scenario?
No, because the pods, based on what they said before, in Destin, the 170 and the 360 didn't make sense with pods. So, I mean, I guess they could have figured out a way to do it, but it seemed like they were going away from the pods. But then if you start breaking it down, okay, well then a 3-6 mile, well, Florida gets Georgia, Tennessee. You throw LSU into that? Like, that's a ridiculous 3 that you have to play every year. I mean, you're already doing it, but then somebody's going to get like Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy as their 3.
I just think of going to a single division as like how that will change, who ends up in the SEC championship games now that there's not 2 divisions. Because like you think of Florida, what was it, the year that they made it in like 16, where they won their division, but maybe they were
best team in the West.
Yeah, so like maybe there were 2 or 3 SEC West teams that had a better record than them and would have went in a one division scenario, and rightfully so.
I can't even begin to wrap my mind around what the tiebreaker scenarios are.
Oh my gosh.
You're gonna have a bunch of 1-loss, 2-loss teams. So
rankings are going to come into play.
Yeah. Good luck, Greg. Good luck, Commissioner Sankey. But
to your point, I mean, there's so many rivalries that have to get preserved that I don't know how you can get away.
That, but then you and I are probably too young to really remember Florida-Auburn being a rivalry. But so I say, I couldn't imagine Florida and Tennessee not playing, and I'm sure there's people a little bit older than us that couldn't imagine Florida and Auburn not playing every year.
Yeah,
and that Florida hasn't been to Auburn in over a decade.
Does Florida LSU or Florida Tennessee get kept if it's only 2 games?
Tennessee.
Even though we're not looking at it from a division standpoint, just historical.
Yep.
Even though I think fans, what do you think fans would want to keep?
Tennessee.
I don't know.
Let us know.
I like the LSU rivalry, but I get it though. That's a tough team to have on your slate every season.
I love the LSU rivalry. I think it's an awesome game.
I really just want to go to New Orleans every year.
I think it's an awesome game, but I don't know that there's many Florida fans that would pick LSU over Tennessee if you had to pick between one of the 2.
I think from a history standpoint, and at least historically, or at least in the last decade plus, how much better LSU's been than Tennessee as a program, that just to make your schedule easier, that you'd prefer to have the Vols on there. So it's going to be a lot of fun to follow in these coming years, but we're still ways from that.
We're gonna get an Austin trip eventually,
but we were going to get it one way or another.
Yeah, that's true.
But no more home and homes. Now it's a little conference action.
Conference slate.
But the Gators will be out of conference in basketball on Friday, but they will be playing certainly a familiar foe, an in-state rival, Florida State. One that the Gators, it's a matchup that, should I say, the Gators have not been able to win on the road in Tallahassee since 2012. So this is a game that means a lot to Florida fans. It's a game that means a lot to this program. And, met with Todd Golden on Thursday, and he was like, yeah, Florida fans have let me know they want me to win this game.
I can imagine anytime he's at a speaking tour, hey, don't lose to Florida State.
Like, it's not even so much, I think anyone demands right away that he beat Kentucky. It's just don't lose to Florida State.
Yeah, it's been.
Because it's always that like early season, that matchup that I think sometimes like
it's similar.
It influences how much fans get into the team in the year.
Similar to in baseball, Florida and Miami always play early, and fans don't want to lose to Miami. But you have to understand, like, hey, the team that Florida is on November, what's Friday? November 11th? No, November something?
18th.
November 18th. That's not the team they're going to be in March, or that's not the team they're going to be, in SEC play, or when the tournament starts, SEC tournament, or the March Madness starts. Same thing with baseball. The team that goes and plays Miami in February is not the team that's going to be playing in June. But it is a benchmark, and it's a rivalry, and it means a lot to the fans. It might not mean a ton to your resume, especially considering Florida State's coming into the game 0-3.
And those are both out of conference for baseball and then out of conference for basketball with FSU, but it's a rival though.
Baby, it's a rivalry. And Florida State's owned that rivalry for most of Ham's tenure there.
Yeah. And not only do you have that kind of looming large, but you also got what you're going through this year and the fact that Gators are coming off a disappointing loss to Florida Atlantic. And that's obviously a matchup that nobody, I think, saw maybe going into the season, expected them to lose. I know that the staff kind of recognized that it was going to be a tough matchup for Florida, and that proved to be true as the Owls come into the O-Dome and as Todd Golden said, bombed us out from beyond the arc, hitting 13 trays. They hit 13 trays. I mean, like a team gets that hot from downtown against you. It's hard to win a game like that. And
some of that could be defense or transition defense. Florida got crushed in transition.
They did.
But also at some point you should tip your hat. Like, hey, you were 13 of 24 from 3.
13 of 24. They made an effort in the second half to not allow them to get off as many 3-point attempts, which they didn't, but they still hit some big ones and a dagger late in that game. And it's just unfortunate for Florida because on the offensive end, they got another monster game from Colin Castleton, back-to-back 30-point performances from him. First time that a Gator player's done that since Anthony Robertson in 2004. So, I mean, you're talking about some history that he made right there, and that's a losing effort. So, some early season adversity now that this team has to deal with. There are a lot of kind of feel good moments throughout the offseason and early on in the year, but now you got to, suck up this loss. And not only it's like, Koasi Reeves said on Wednesday, it's not like you get to come back home and get another, matchup in front of your home crowd. Like, we got to go on the road in a hostile environment, play our rivals, a place that we haven't won in a long time, and find a way to come out with a win. And then, oh, by the way, then you got to go to the Phil Knight Invitational after that. So they're not going to be home for a while. And, we're going to find out a lot about this team here coming up.
Yeah, and I think you've got a bunch. It's an interesting roster. You've got some older guys. You've got some grad transfers.
Yep.
A guy like Colin Castleton, who I think is in his 14th year playing college basketball. It will be telling to see the coaching staff. How did they refocus the team and how did they get the team back? So this is the first, not just the team, it's the first time we're going to see the coaches handle adversity.
Yeah.
And how do you address what went wrong on Monday and help your team get ready for, like you said, a bunch of road games coming up.
And look, if you are you're feeling down about the fact that the Gators took that L to FAU and you're a Florida fan, at least you're not an FSU fan. Because their start to the season on the basketball front has not been good. The Noles come into this matchup 0-3, open their season with losses to Stetson, USF, and then Troy. So not a hard start to this season for the Seminoles. And if you're Florida, I mean, you got to win this game.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get back on track, just to, I think, get that fan base even more excited about what Todd Golden is building and what this team has going on. And I think you have some really tough environments and matchups that you're about to go play in on the road. You need to figure out what it takes. I think you get a win at Florida State and Tallahassee. That's going to set you up and kind of give you confidence moving forward. So one thing I'm definitely looking forward to, we know Castleton's going to bring it. I think we've seen that Will Richard is probably one of Florida's best players and their best shooter. But one guy that's really been playing well, I think early on, is Koasi Reeves. I mean, he's really stepped up, made some big time shots. And I don't know, Nick, might be the hair.
Is it purple now?
It's purple now.
It was the polka dots. He's a NBA 2K character. He gets his VC and he goes straight to the barbershop and he's changing his hair. I like it though. I wasn't a big fan of his freshman hair.
I mean, it was original.
It was a statement.
And I asked him, I was like, what made you cut your hair? Asked him on Wednesday, and he's like, just getting too heavy. I mean, it was a heavy head of hair.
Heavy. I like it though. Little Dennis Rodman flair.
Well, and that was, I asked him, like, did you?
He probably doesn't know who Dennis Rodman is, or doesn't know the Dennis Rodman that was
did
doing that when he played for the Bulls.
It's just great minds thinking alike.
He probably knows who Dennis Rodman is because he's a basketball player. But like, does he know that Dennis Rodman would have crazy hair?
Probably not. Because you know what? I think if he did know or find out, his hair might go to the next level. Because so far he's just done the bleach blonde with the red hearts, and then he switched it up with the purple look. And he said he's going to bring out a lot of colors this season.
I look forward to it.
It's his canvas.
It's fun.
And I think it's, hey, man, it gives him confidence. I will say that it was interesting to hear him talk about, kind of getting his mind right in terms of as a player and how he approaches the game. Because, he said that it's, every game that he goes out and plays, like before the game, it's like a mental thing with him where he's basically, he said, like, he even prays about it, that he wants to be happy for his teammates and like make an effort to be genuinely excited and supportive of them throughout the game and not think about his own production and not like go into the game, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to prove this, or I'm going to show this. He's like, throughout my freshman season, every time I went into a game with that mindset, I did not have a good game. And then every time I went into it with, you know what, I'm going to focus on my team, focus on my teammates, get excited for them when they're having good moments. Those were my best games. And feels like he's got that mentality a little bit more consistently. And it's showing up early on this season. So I also think that, one thing that he mentioned, and we've seen it, is the ball movement. They're a really unselfish team. There's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of rotations that they use. And Todd Golden and his staff are finding ways to kind of keep everybody happy, to move the ball around. And that was one thing that Kawasi says has been the biggest surprise about this team, is how unselfish that they've played. And there's a lot of talent. So he was like, there are times when it'd be easy for the ball to kind of stick in the course of the game, and that just hasn't happened, and he doesn't think it's going to. So obviously they need to shore some things up on the defensive end. That was a big emphasis in practice this week, and we'll see what they're bringing to the table when they go to Tallahassee on Friday night. So make sure you guys tune into that matchup. Certainly make sure you guys tune into the Gators and Commodores on Saturday. It'll be noon your time, 11 a.m. local. I think Nick and I are going to be responsible on Friday night and not show up right before kickoff like we have done for some Nashville trips.
It's a temptation.
It's a temptation, but we're planning for Saturday. So hope to see some of you Florida fans out there, maybe on Broadway or maybe at the stadium. And obviously, I think that's one of the trips that Florida fans look forward to the most.
Great town.
It is. So we'll be back next week to let you guys know how that went, and obviously get you ready for another Florida FSU matchup, but this time on the gridiron as the Gators head to Tallahassee to take on Mike Norvell's improving team.
They're improving. We'll see. I don't think they've played anyone really, but we'll see.
Yeah, we
beat LSU.
Yeah,
missed extra point.
But like you said, it's kind of like Florida Miami baseball, Florida FSU, and basketball. That the LSU team that you played back then is not.
I'll let you know. I'm picking Florida next week too.
Ooh. I have to see if I follow suit, Nick.
We'll see.
We'll see how the Gators look this weekend in Nashville. We'll see you guys next week at Spurs Gridiron Grill.